Okay, good afternoon and welcome to Shulchan Aruch Yomi Iyun. Today's Simon is Simon Mem Beis number 42 in Orach Chaim. Um, Basically, the Gemara has a conclusion according to Rava, who we hold halacha, that Hazmana is not considered milsi for things which have kedusha, even for things to make it usher like Tashmisha Avodah Zarah and things like that. It doesn't have the isra of Tashmisha Avodah Zarah if it's just if you set it aside for it, if you didn't actually worship it. And same thing like tefillin for kedusha, also the same thing. You have to set it aside and actually use it one time in order for it to attain a status of kedusha that you can no longer use it for whole purposes, for secular purposes, to use it for money and things like that. The Milky says there's one exception, that what Hazmana is milsi, if you have actually the cloth, and I guess he would include the boxes of tefillin, which are considered not just the parchment itself where you write the letters on, is gufa kedusha. That's not tashmisha kedusha. Right? The Gemara says tashmisha mitzvah and tashmisha kedusha. That's in service to kedusha. That is the kedusha. The cloth is the kedusha that's filling. There, Hazmana is milsi. That's in the Milky Milsi. It says in Masechah Sanhedrin. Mishnah Berurah brings this, and he brings, there are people of Ayin Magid Ram Shehevi Das HaCholknas that was filled up with kedusha Hazmana Eina Klum. He says there are poskim that argue on this. Afal Piki and Mishnah Berurah Zelinia Maisi Yesh Lahachmek as far as Shonag Moshe Ksav Ber Allah Chavakopanim Mahani Tanai Bezeh. He says Tanai would work over here, just like a Tanai works, right? Even if you has your Mazman and Sarbe, if you made a Tanai, it doesn't have kedusha. Mio hiska lichtov al klaf stam o shar kisvei kodesh afila al niyar asher lichtov achar kach alav divrei chol l'chol yalma shezeh asa ma'isa shal gufa kedusha ve'afilu lo tanai lo mahani bazeh. So I don't understand this last thing. He seems to be implying, even where it's not a cloth, even paper, he says, you start writing, I don't know, like the Sfarim nowadays, they're printed with an ink printer. I mean, they're not written by human beings. As I mentioned before, it's very interesting that when it comes to matzah, we assume that lishma, there's no lishma by machines, but somehow by Sfarim, we assume lishma is, or lishma is lishma by machines, and it's the right deal, which also can't be erased, so it's not exactly deal. Anyway, I want to discuss this opinion in Milky Yosef and the Cholkim Alav, mainly the Cholkim Alav, meaning the whole premise of this Milky Yosef says there's two categories. It's Tashmisha Kedusha and there's Gufa Kedusha Atom. He creates a new category over here. Now, the Ritzuos is considered Tashmisha Kedusha because the service is the Kedusha. The keys that you put your tefillin in is Tashmisha Kedusha. But the cloth itself is not. I mean, it's very clear from the Gemara Megillah. The Gemara talks about Sefer Torah. Sefer Torah becoming called Tashmisha Kedusha. And the Mishnah Berurah even wants to make a chiluk over here. He wants to say there's two things. There's mitzvos and there's Tashmisha mitzvos. That's what he says over here in Sif Chaf Beis. He says, "Aval Azman l'guf ha-mitzvah kegon tzitzis shofar lula zukav v'ner Chanukah afilin l'asal l'kach lo mitzvah da Azman la milsei." He says Azman is not milsei. He said, why is he even bringing mechalik in the categories that he's calling tzitzis and shofar and lulav those gufa mitzvah? The Gemara says explicitly what's considered tashmisha mitzvah. In the exact cases, tzitzis, shofar, lulav are called tashmisha mitzvah. It doesn't say they're called gufa mitzvah. You see clearly the Gemara is not mechalik. Since there's no Tashmisha Mitzvah includes things that are actually the mitzvah themselves. So likewise, when it comes to Tashmisha Kedusha, and it's clear from the Gemara that tefillin themselves, the parchment, the batim, the Sefer Torah itself, the actual cloth of the Sefer Torah, that's called Tashmisha Kedusha. It's stuff that is used for Kedusha. It's parchment that is used for Kedusha, right? You need a lot of things. You need the cloth, you need the dio, you need the lishma, you need mu'ubud, you have to, all these things. That makes tashmisha. There's no two categories. The Milky Yosef thinks a chilak in gufa kedusha and tashmisha kedusha. It's clear. There's no two categories of tashmisha mitzvah and gufa mitzvah, or tashmisha kedusha and gufa kedusha. It's all the same thing. So, and the Gemara talks about tashmisha kedusha, and in order to make it kaddish, you need hazmana visarbe, like Rava says. We don't pass on hazmana milsi. So it seems very clear to me. It's sort of what Mishnah Berurah says at the end. He says by svarim also, for sure you can't write divrei chol on it. Hard to understand. I mean, this is actually talked about. He brings in footnote 34 in the Dirshu, a lot of poskim are machmir that hatfasasam hi kichsiva. The printing is like siva. Hard to understand, based on the fact that by matzah we don't consider machine matzah to be good for Leil Seder, to be used to the mitzvah of matzah on the first night of Pesach. Second of all, the dio is a different ink; it can't be erased, so obviously it's not good. It's not cloth. I mean, it's not one of the things that has to be on cloth. How can you say niyar paper is like cloth? Cloth is from an animal. Niyar comes from a tree. It's from it's wood. The Gemara never ascribed kedusha. It's not says cloth and not dosustos. Even a different type of leather, inferior leather, the split grain leather is puzzle for this. Certainly niyar has no kedusha. If you write different kedusha, a lot of people write notes or write. They tell you buy a notebook and they write. They start writing divrei Torah, or chidushei divrei Torah, or they copy the notes from a rebbe or a shir or something like that. There's no reason why you can't write divrei chol now. There's no kedusha at all. It's not tashmish. Maybe it's tashmish mitzvah, but tashmish mitzvah is not. You're allowed to throw them out. You don't have to put them in geniza. The minhag is to throw out, photocopies. You make a svarim also to put them in geniza. Hard for me to understand why. They're definitely not tashmish kedusha. Maybe tashmish mitzvah. Maybe not in tashmish mitzvah. We've learned many times that limud Torah itself is inferior to other mitzvahs because the main part of the Torah is to do the mitzvahs, not to learn the Torah. Anyway, that's what I have to say for today. Hope you enjoy your July 4th. I didn't even mention it. July 4th in America, if you're watching. Happy Independence Day. July 4th. What anniversary of America is this? 76. 224 plus 22. 246 years America has been independent. 246. 4 more years, 250. If you're living in America, I hope you enjoy it. But again, the weather, as I said to my aunt and uncle, the weather is better in Israel. So if you live in New York and New Jersey especially, so you got to move to Israel just for the weather. Make Aliyah. We'll see you here. Bye.